Blog Talk Radio.
There's some dangerous, large carnivore out there.
And I saw that bird pick a young deer off the way and fly away.
And it was just about getting dark, and we started panicking, running down this ridge, not really having any clue what was throwing rocks in our vicinity, good-sized rocks. And I stopped long enough to get a 357 out of my backpack and look back, and that's when I saw it. I saw one.
For a week, the town of Defiance was being harassed by a werewolf. And it's actually attacked two railroad workers, killed livestock, just a lot of weird stuff that was going on.
Good Sunday evening, Monster Xers. This is your host, Gunnar Monson, also the founder of the Sasquatch Coffee Company. Sasquatch Coffee, have you tried it yet? It's not just a cool idea, it's really good coffee. So go to www.squatchcoffee.com to check it out and get your, we actually have samples for $1 on there, so you can try a couple different varieties there and see if it's up your alley. So spent the weekend out with, Friday night went out with Shane and our buddy Larry and Cody up in Washington in the beautiful area by Mount Adams. And had a great time. I didn't have anything really squatchy that happened, but it was a good time. So, and with me, as always, is my good friend and awesome Bigfoot researcher, Shane Corson. Good afternoon,
Gunnar.
Shane.
Good afternoon. How are things going on your end?
Really good. Yeah, it was. I was mentioning our trip out to Mount Adams area this weekend, and
Oh yeah,
that was kick-ass. I was still recovering from having my gallbladder removed. So, but
well, you did fantastic.
We hiked in 5 miles with heavy packs and spent the night in an area where there's been some interesting activity. So, we had heard some weird thumping, but that didn't mean any. Could have been anything. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
a few oddities. Nothing that really stood out. But what an absolutely beautiful area. We had perfect weather, and we found fresh bear scat. We found cougar scat. Trees that had been scraped up by, probably bear, and just the whole area. It was phenomenal. And our guide Cody that led us into this area, just a really nice guy, outdoorsy guy, hunter and whatnot. And it was nice being out there with him since he's had some strange occurrences out there. Yeah, it was just a fantastic time out and a good hike.
It was, and we had a little bit of a incident with a tick. That attached itself to Cody, and Dr. Larry, otherwise known as Dr. Feelgood, was able to extract the tick in its the whole thing, and so it's weird because then there was a tick that jumped on him while Larry's in the process of removing the first one, and we all, of course, then we were all checking each other for ticks, which isn't something that a lot of guys will admit, but
what was nice?
Certain area,
yeah. What was nice was one of the things you're not supposed to do apparently is torch them with a lighter or burn them off. And luckily, in my DNA kit that I always carry with me, I had a pair of tweezers, and Larry managed to get right on the head of this thing and yank it out, and the whole thing came out. So and it was probably on there a limited amount of time. And Cody was leading us in, so I think that tick was probably on some high grass or possibly a pine. Because there, when we got off trail a little bit, you're going through heavy brush and stuff, and so yeah, thank God we had Larry and a pair of tweezers.
Yeah. So yeah, it was exciting. So certain areas of personal, we decided that each man was left to himself to check certain areas. So things didn't get too out of hand up there. I actually slept outside of the tent. It was so warm that I didn't even use my tent. I slept on my camp pad, and it was a beautiful night. Had a great time, and then last night I met Larry up in our research area, and Jess was up there, her first time out since she had her unfortunate accident, and then Susan, my lady friend, went with me, so we had a good time. Again, it was a quiet night last night. Some kind of vague stuff, a possible whistle, some branch snaps, but definitely nothing definitive last night. We had a good hike out this morning, so it was a very good Squatchy weekend. So looking forward to going back up to Washington sometime, and our group is getting ready to kick some butt on some of our ongoing projects for this summer. So very good, and the weather was awesome here in Oregon this weekend too. So we didn't get rained on, and the Squatches must have been off doing their own thing this weekend. So
right,
good time.
Well, I mean, I think with the heat and stuff. Some of the areas that we're out in, there's some water sources, but there's a lot cooler areas to be in than kind of the areas that we, traverse. And, up there at Mount Adams, we were up on a bit of a hill, and it was very dry, but we got a little bit lower, and I started noticing moisture and stuff, so it would make sense that, with the heat that animals and whatnot would be in a little bit cooler area.
Yeah, no, it was like I said, it was just an absolutely beautiful area, and of course we were talking about how it'd be cool to walk from that area up to Mount Adams, because it's just nothing but woods between where we were at and the mountain, and it would be pretty awesome to just walk down in there, and you and I hiked down that mountainside quite a ways, and it's weird to be out in the woods and actually find piles of cow crap. So that's there's actually there's wild cows.
Yeah,
not
and
really
they had
wild
bells on them. Yeah, so you could hear them from a distance at times, but it's funny because there are bears and cougars in the area. Apparently, quite prevalently actually. There was a lot of evidence of that. So
there was.
The bells will help keep that sort of predator away.
So we're working with our first encounter show, and one of our got one gentleman that's coming on here in the first hour, and then we're going to talk to another gentleman in the second the second hour, and talk about their encounters. And so you've spoke to Justin quite a bit about his encounter. Give us a little bit of a lead in into what we can expect to hear.
Yeah, he's on hold now, but I'll let him go with it. But it's an intriguing encounter. He seems very honest to me. In fact, I found his encounter in an odd way, and it had nothing to do. It was actually in a fishing forum, and it had by no means he wasn't reaching out to any Bigfooters or any Bigfoot sort of scenario, but it was in a fishing forum, and I thought that was pretty ballsy because he did get attacked in this forum, and people were making fun of him and that. But he's like, I saw what I saw, and I was just curious if other people had seen stuff like this. So I reached out to him, and we eventually got to chatting on the phone, and I asked him to join Monster X and whatnot. So, seems like a very sincere and honest guy.
Well, let's go ahead and bring Justin on and see what I'm excited to hear about his encounters. So.
Yeah, well, he's on air now. Hey, Justin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, right on, Justin. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I almost missed you. I got two little monsters of my own running around that take all the time.
Absolutely,
Hi, Justin.
Man.
Thanks for coming.
No worries. Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys.
So Justin, tell us about a little bit about yourself, your background, and.
Well, my whole family is pretty much outdoorsy and stuff like that. My grandpa was a county surveyor, so he spent 90% of his time in the outdoors. I grew up hunting and fishing and all the stuff that the privileged kids get, and I was about 15 years ago is when I had my first encounter, and that was up on the side of Mount Nikolai in the Saddle Mountain unit out elk hunting. And it was the first year I'd ever been to elk camp with my dad. And we had got up, this was like the second or third day, and we were hitting up a new spot, and my uncle and I were down at the bottom of this draw, and it was pretty thick brush and stuff, but looked like it'd be prime habitat for elk. And we noticed a smell that I was describing to Shane. It could only be like a goat that's been peeing on himself mixed with BO. I mean, it was horrendous. And we figured it was a bull elk, but there was nothing. I mean, there was no sign of anything. There wasn't deer, elk. I mean, no sign, no tracks, nothing. And we really didn't think too much of it. And later on in the day, that was about 8 o'clock in the morning that happened. And then around 11:30, my dad and I were up further up the hill and decided to take a lunch break in this timber patch. And we're sitting on the edge of the hill there, and we heard some crashing off to the right. And so we both kind of froze. And my dad froze looking at the direction the sound was coming from, and I froze facing straight forward with my eyes scanned over there. And a cow and a calf elk walked out and completely oblivious to us. And they kind of just kept walking along, and we're watching them, and they're about 30 yards in front of us, like directly in front of me, the way I was facing. And we heard some more crashing off the direction that they were coming, so my dad looked back that way, and I kept my eyes on the cow and the calf elk, and from probably, I would say, another 30 yards behind her, there was these two big brushy patches, and it came out from right to left and took 3 steps, and it was about 22 feet between the two of them. So, I mean, it was pretty good stride length, and I mean, I've never seen anything like that before, and I'm pretty aware of all the animals in the area. I mean, growing up pretty much in the woods. I mean, I graduated up in Tootle and stuff. It's pretty small woods town, and yeah, it's I can't imagine it could be anything else. I mean, the bear was. If it was a bear, it was a big bear, and it was the most graceful bear on 2 legs I've ever seen. So I didn't really tell anything to my dad right then and there. I mean, I was still trying to prove to him that I was cool enough to be at elk camp, I guess. So it wasn't actually until a couple months later that I told him about it. So he didn't see it, but
so what was the distance when you from the creature that you saw? And
I would say 60, 65 yards tops.
So pretty close.
Yeah, it was definitely close enough. I mean, it happened too fast to see any real detail. But I mean, it was apparent. I mean, there was arm swinging. You could see the full outline of it in the short time that I saw it. And then the cow and the calf elk, as soon as that thing ran out, the cow and the calf elk took off at a rate of speed I've never seen before. I mean, and shooting into a herd of elk, they take off pretty fast, when you're hunting and stuff. But this was beyond any of that. You could hear them crashing for probably a mile through the timber for what seemed like forever. I mean, it was you could hear them for probably 5 minutes, but that was at full speed, and it was pretty intense.
So Justin, can you
go ahead?
From what you saw, can you describe? Did you see a color of hair? You mentioned it was graceful on two legs. I mean, any sort of behavior that stuck out to you? And do you think it was pursuing these elk?
Well, I mean, the way that it was coming from the same, the right to left was the same way that the cow and the calf elk were coming from. And it didn't, the cow and the calf still never noticed my dad. They had no idea we were there. We were just sitting up against the bank in the pine needles and blending in and just being really still. And, I mean, it was coming from the same direction. So, I couldn't say positively, but,
right.
That's kind of what it appeared like to me, that it was following them. And, I couldn't imagine it would be real keen on taking down the adult, but, the yearling that was with the cow would probably be pretty easy. But yeah, it was right to left. It was probably, like I said, it was about 22 feet. It took 3 steps. You couldn't. There's no way that you could have saw definition in the tracks. I mean, it was thick pine needles and stuff. But like I said, we didn't go up there. I didn't tell my dad. For whatever reason, I have no idea why. But in fact, we've had many talks late at night out in the shop drinking beer, and he's wondering, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? And, shit, I don't know. But yeah, it was. I would say, it was dark colored. If I had to guess, I'd say the hair was probably 4 inches or so. Maybe longer in spots. And in the timber, it kind of had almost like reddish highlights, I guess you could say. Because there was a little bit of sunlight filtering through, but not much.
Right.
But it was definitely dark colored, and it was moving with a purpose.
Yeah, I imagine like you say, you couldn't pick out too many features, but could you guesstimate or estimate a height, and did you see any arms or anything like that?
Well, you could see the arm swinging. With every step it took. They just like a bipedal creature would walk. I would say, this is 15 years ago. Everything seems bigger, I guess, when you're younger. But I would say probably, I don't know, 8 in about the 8-foot range. If I had to guess, 8.5 foot maybe. It wasn't no 10-footer like you hear some people talk about and stuff. But it was definitely a good size.
Yeah, 8 foot for if it was a black bear. That's pretty big for a black bear.
Yeah, that's unheard of down here. Maybe in Alaska
exactly.
you see it every now and then, but down here, it's 5.5 foot is about your normal.
Yeah,
so,
I've
seen lots of bear.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I've seen lots of bear, and it wasn't a bear. I know 100% it wasn't a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Even a trained bear
look
couldn't run.
Pretty girthy, weight-wise. Could you get did it look heavy? Could you tell if it was lean or?
It was. I don't know. It wasn't like fat or like just ginormous, but I was on a side profile, so I couldn't see the width of the shoulders or anything like that. But it was definitely in shape. That's for sure. It was pretty good size. I remember seeing kind of like its butt was like more defined, I guess you could say, than like a human would be or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was with all the fur and stuff like that. It's hard to tell anyway. But
right.
It wasn't little by no means. That's for sure. If I had to guess, I'd probably say it was in the order of 650 pounds.
Okay.
And, I mean, just from my angle, so I mean, it was big.
Did it ever notice you? Did you?
How
did
old?
you?
I have no idea if it
Okay.
noticed me or not. I couldn't really tell. I mean, it was so fast that I think it was trained on the elk and didn't even realize we were there, because they all kind of came up onto where we were at. You know, we were just sitting there eating a sandwich, and and this whole thing happened coming up the hillside off to our right, and then into the little flat area where the timber was at.
Gotcha.
So Justin, how old were you when you had your encounter?
I was 15. I had just turned 15. It was my first year at elk camp. My first year actually actively hunting and stuff. I've been up there for a couple days before, but this was the first time I was ever allowed to take some time off school to go up there and spend a week.
So where exactly? Because you caught me when you were saying mentioned Nikolai Mountain, because later this summer my girlfriend and I are headed to do a 4-day hike. We're going to hike from Nikolai Mountain to Mist Mountain. Like there's a 45 mile trail in there. So whereabouts?
If you know where Birkenfeld is?
Yep.
Okay, if you go through the town of Birkenfeld, another couple miles past that, heading west, there's Northrop Creek Road, and you go up there. It turns to gravel. There's a horse camp up there, and it wasn't a horse camp at the time. That was where we put the trailer, and that's where we base camp from. But now it's a horse camp, and that's where we based from. And then from there it was only a couple miles on the gravel in any direction to where we'd get out and hunt. And so they've got it's actually marked now that Northrop Creek horse camp is, and they got bathrooms and everything there now. They didn't have that when we were there. So
that's cool.
But yeah, it was pretty intense.
It's funny because I was just talking. Larry and I were out in the woods today, and I was talking about our upcoming hike and stuff. And if you go up on the top of Saddle Mountain and look around, and for me, it's like, are there Squatches out there? It's like, how many are out there?
Exactly. It's such a big area, especially from the top of the mountain. Yeah, that's a pretty cool hike in itself.
Yeah, it is. But it has some history there. That's
oh yeah.
where Todd Neese had his encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And
Shane and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
But did I catch it? Did you say this was your first encounter? Have you had subsequent encounters?
Well, yeah, I've had other times. Actually, Cody that Shane was with a couple days ago. He's a good friend of mine. We actually went to school together in Longview, and it was just kind of coincidence that we, had met, and we both had our own encounters and stuff. Last year, Labor Day weekend, my birthday was on Labor Day, and we go every year to Packwood Lake and hike in, and this year, 3 of us. Usually we have a pretty big group. There's about 15 of us or so that go, but Cody, myself, and our friend Steven, he lives in Arizona, but he flew up for this. He flies up for it every year. In fact, I'm the minister at his wedding that's going to be there this year. But we decided to stay an extra night, so we stayed on through Monday night when everybody else that was camping up there and stuff had gone home, because we'd never been up there with nobody. And so we'd went out at about 11 o'clock at night and walked the trail around the lake and stuff. And Cody and I are both pretty into it and stuff like that. And we shouted a couple calls and stuff from across the lake and everything. And then we got one time by Steven, out of nowhere. I don't even know where he had this thing stored, but had this really aggressive sounding call. I mean, it actually stood the hair up on the back of your neck, standing right next to him. And from across the lake, probably a mile and a half, there was a real deep, bassy, guttural, like a boom, came back, and I mean, like I was telling Shane, I mean, it's a sound that you feel more than you hear. And being a Discovery Channel nerd and all that kind of stuff growing up and living out, I mean, I've never heard anything like that. There's nothing out there that makes the sound that we heard. I mean, it was real deep, and we were just kind of like, oh, that was weird. And so we kind of finished up with nothing really else, and we got back to camp. And we camp at the last camping spot, so it's like 4.5 miles to the lake from the parking lot, and then it's another 4 miles to where we camp at. And we were clear back over there at the other end of the lake, and Cody and Steven, they said, well, we're going to go throw a couple calls off again at the end of the night. And I was like, well, shit, I'm going to go stoke the fire because it's about dead. And so I'm standing there getting the fire going and got another one of those calls across the lake. And within 5-10 seconds tops from behind my tent, probably, I mean, if I had to guess, probably only 100 yards behind my tent came the same sound, only that, you know, much louder, much closer, and evoked far less sleep. We'll put it that way. I don't think I slept at all that night.
What time did that occur at?
That was probably, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, we've all seen the TV shows and stuff like that, and how you're supposed to do it and everything, and I don't put a whole lot of stock into some of that stuff, but
yeah,
it was a sound that doesn't belong to anything that I know of out there, and I've seen pretty much everything there is to see out there. I mean, I didn't know that there was lynx, like a good population of lynx down this far south, and I saw my first lynx probably about 8 months ago or so. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but it's nothing that. I mean, it was a strange sound.
Yeah. And was there anybody else camping in this area? I mean, were you guys the only ones out there? I mean, I'm just trying to.
We were the only ones.
Okay. Just trying to rule out the human. I mean, I guess you can never truly rule out the human element, but for what you noticed.
I mean, it's you know, I mean, it was Labor Day, so everybody had got up and gone home by 2-3 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the only ones that stayed on through till the next day. And we figured it would be a good opportunity since, everybody had been gone. If they were going to come in and try to see if there was anything to scavenge, that would be a good time to do it. So we were kind of trying to set ourselves up for success there. But,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was intense. So...
Yeah.
So other than the calls that night, was there? I mean, did you have any other kind of activity or?
No, we didn't have. That was it.
So
gotcha.
It sounds like it was pretty unnerving anyway. I mean,
yeah, it was. It was definitely unnerving. You could say that. Well, Cody and Steven's tents were right next to each other, about 60 yards from mine. When we had a group of people, we had like 2 little separate camps. And everybody had left, and my tent was the only one in the other camp. And I wasn't going to move everything at 2 o'clock in the morning, but it made for no sleep that night, that's for sure.
Now, Justin, getting a little bit back to your original encounter, after you actually told your dad, what were his thoughts? You were, probably feeling, kind of weird telling him, but you did in fact tell him. What was his thoughts? And did he give you any sort of backing? Did he have anything ever similar to? I mean, has he seen or heard anything?
He has never seen, I take that back. Him and my uncle, the same uncle that we were camping with, or we were hunting with that day, at another spot, they were out there kind of getting ready to get back in the rig, stop to stretch their legs and stuff, and a rock flew, a rock probably about the size of a golf ball, flew out of nowhere and hit my uncle right up on top of the foot. And he jumps up and down and stuff like that, and they had no idea what the heck happened, how or anything like that. But he's not really, I wouldn't say skeptic, but he's not a believer for sure.
Right.
So he grills me and 20 questions me every time we talk about it.
Right.
I don't know if he's trying to find inconsistencies or what he's trying to do, but it's hard for him to believe that he was there and didn't experience it.
Right. I guess that's kind of how it should be, and that's why people get grilled so much. And they, it's you saw something he did not. He did experience the crashing and saw the elk, but he did not witness.
And he knew that they ran off like a shot, but
completely oblivious to you.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to him about, and he's like, I guess they kind of did, and he's like thinking back, that they didn't notice us, and then they took off like that. But he's still kind of skeptical. I mean, he gives me this funny look every time we're talking about it, like he's trying to see through something.
And this area, kind of backtracking a little bit, can you describe the area a little bit more too? I mean, are there water sources abundant? Was it coming out of the forest down a hill, were you guys in sort of a valley?
We were on like a side hill, in a mature timber patch. I think it's been logged since then, or it's kind of a bummer, but when we had the smell in the morning and eerie silence, there wasn't a sound to be made. There was, chipmunks always yell at you when you're in the woods, and there was nothing. And that's like kind of like the bottom of a drainage. There's a small creek that runs through that and everything. And then every little drainage area up there's got water in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's temperate rainforest. But
right.
It was fairly thick. It was, like I said, it was a mature timber patch. It had been thinned before, and it was, probably 5-10 years from being logged. And it was a nice bed of needles. It was quiet walking. It was comfortable sitting. So, yeah, it was about halfway to the top. I don't know if you've ever been to Mount Nikolai, but up on top there's like microwave towers, or used to be microwave towers or something. It might still be up there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But and a pretty good view from up there too. You can see Saddle Mountain from there. And
one of the. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, go for it.
I was going to say one of the things you just mentioned was the lack of wildlife and the lack of sounds, and that is fairly common with Bigfoot sightings or Bigfoot encounters. Is this lack of wildlife, lack of sounds that normally you would expect to hear or see wildlife in these areas, and then during a Bigfoot encounter, people often note there was just a void of sound or animal activity around. So that's pretty interesting.
Odd. And we didn't really think about it at the time, but then later on that night when I'm laying there in my bunk in the trailer and kind of rolling it over in my head, kind of hit me that it was eerily quiet. There wasn't a little Tweety bird or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's odd, especially for the time of year and the area.
Exactly. And during my encounter, I experienced the same thing, the lack of wildlife, chipmunk. There was just nothing. It was so quiet, it was eerie. And we actually did know, I was out with two buddies, and we did note that fact going in. Well, wow, it's awfully quiet out here. Where are the birds and chipmunks and, and everything else you expect to hear? It was void of that. So something I note down because I've heard this time and time again. It's like this apex predator's in the area, and the other animals sense it, or something of that nature.
Yeah, or I don't know if it was depleted from it being in the area or what, but yeah, it was absolutely quiet.
Yeah,
and
this possible Sasquatch, it didn't make any sound or anything.
No, I didn't hear its footsteps, nothing. But as soon as it was halfway across this thing, it was 1.5 steps in, and the cow elk turned over, looked at it, and bolted. So there could have been sounds that were covered up by the sound of the elk crashing. I don't know. It was all kind of happened pretty quick. Yeah,
and this is just an impression sort of thing. But did you get any impression if it was a male or female, whatever it was? I know that's a pretty broad, question.
Well,
you didn't see any junk or anything like that. But a lot of people report they got a feeling.
I've seen the Patterson footage and stuff like that, and there was, it's fairly noticeable that that's female. I would have thought that there would have been a little pendulum action if it was female. but I didn't see any. I mean, if I had to guess, it was male.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I was 15 years old. I'd noticed boobs.
Right. Have you since done any research on this area to see if there's been other encounters? I know there has. It's a pretty historically, it's got a lot of encounters and whatnot. Have you done any research on the area yourself? Justin?
Did we lose him?
We might have.
I see. It looks like he dropped off the. I don't see
well, if he
him.
calls back, we'll take him.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about that. He's like, oh, yeah. What are your thoughts, Gunnar? This is your first time hearing this encounter. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it sounds legit. I mean, it sounds like he saw a Sasquatch chasing down elk, which makes perfect sense. The detail matches the story too. He's not like adding, he saw a profile view. I mean, so he didn't see like he mentioned, he didn't see how broad the shoulders are, which is very much in alignment with what you would expect if you saw in a brief, like 4 or 5 second encounter, and it was you're looking at it from the side, you wouldn't get that. How wide are the shoulders and stuff? So, I mean,
right.
It's an interesting, and I mean, not of course I'm stoked because of course part of our hike from Nikolai Mountain, we're going to be, of course, we'll be doing some squatching on our way through there. So, but that is very, very cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Justin's back with us. Justin, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone died.
Oh, no problem. Justin, since that encounter, did it at the time and subsequently after, what did that do to your mind? Did it make you afraid to go to the woods, or were you just inquisitive? What did that do to your mind?
Well, I mean, I was there for a long time. I mean, I was kind of nervous to go by myself, but I mean, I didn't feel threatened during this encounter. I suppose it would be different if I had. No, it just sparked a curiosity in me that, it confirmed a curiosity, I guess you could say. It, I mean, even to this day, I mean, I'm 30 years old, and I mean, I still get the feeling occasionally that, someone's watching me and stuff, like anybody. But, no, I mean, I'm not afraid to go in the woods. I really don't want to see one face to face by myself without backup, But like I said, it wasn't threatening at all. It was, maybe to the elk it was, but it wasn't to me.
Right.
And it makes you think twice, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sometimes where I get a feeling, and then your senses get heightened, and every little bird flicking their wings or something is get your attention. But yeah, it kind of makes me smile sometimes when I'm out there, though.
Yeah. Right. And does it? I mean, does it bog your mind that these things could be out there, or is that like not such a boggle for you that you find it very reasonable with the areas and the abundance of terrain and resources? Do you think it's very plausible that? Yeah.
I mean, I could go out in the woods and you couldn't find me.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm not built for that, I guess you'd say. But if
Yeah.
I wanted to be not found, I could go out there and you couldn't find me. I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult. There's so much area. People are like, oh, somebody would stumble upon it. But I mean, there's so much area that I've never seen footprints or anything by humans. I mean, it's. I don't think it's that hard to wrap your mind around as long as you just keep an open mind. I mean,
Right.
look at the bonobos. I mean, they didn't know the bonobos existed, and all of a sudden, bam! There's like 5,000 of them that they found in the Congo or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's not. I mean, that's a large ape. It's a big family group. You know, it's not just like little pods here and there. I mean, that's like a city. And I mean, if that can go so long without being discovered, I mean, why couldn't it?
Right, and I would presume Sasquatch is a bit more intelligent than the bonobo or some of these other.
Oh,
yeah.
More specialized, I would say. I mean, because bonobos, I mean, it's like chimpanzees and stuff. They use tools and everything, but I mean, I don't think Bigfoot makes fire. I don't think that there's a hairy man out there that knows everything that we know, kind of thing. But I mean, they probably know a lot of things we don't know.
I mean, very astute to its environment and and could probably do it at size and strength and travel great distances and whatnot and go to remote areas that humans just don't go. And I mean, when you saw this thing, were you ready to take a picture of it? I mean, you weren't, were you?
Oh, hell no.
No, not even close. You weren't expecting.
I was sitting outside to eat a sandwich.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a 3-minute encounter, a 5-minute encounter. I mean, it was just, it popped in and out, and you were just shocked by what you were looking at. And you probably weren't even thinking about taking a picture, were you?
Well, back then there wasn't. I mean, if you had a camera, you had to go get your film developed and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it wasn't like you had a camera on your cell phone. You carried a cell phone in there, you were crazy because it weighed about 15 pounds. But it was, it wasn't. I mean, nowadays there's so much more technology that it's easier. But then again, everybody's skeptic of that too. I mean, how come the video is always shaky? Well, I mean, come on, you just had an encounter with a Bigfoot. You think your hands are going to not shake? I mean,
great point.
I was watching the video the other day. Actually, it was a woman that was filming one pacing or something, and it was on one of the Bigfoot forums on Facebook, and it was totally still. Like she was holding the camera totally still, and it was. I mean, she zoomed in, and I don't know about you guys, but I can't get it to stay still, zoomed in at all on anything.
Unless it's on a tripod or something. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
it's the same thing with therms. Yeah, I use thermal equipment a lot, and it, unless I have it on a tripod, it's shaking. You don't think at the time sometimes that you're shaking, but you are.
Oh yeah. Even like I said, even if you're not having an encounter, I mean, there's going to be some shaking involved. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that there's not definitive, clear footage that's not vibrating all over the place. Because, I mean, who packed a tripod around with them, sets it up just in case one walks through this area?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not,
I occasionally do if I'm using a therm, but we're talking about nighttime, and you're basically a needle in a haystack sort of scenario. And if you get lucky, you do, and if you don't, well, chances are you're not going to. You'll probably catch a coyote or a deer, but a lot of times I don't take a tripod out there, and a lot of times with reports, I mean, even nowadays, people have the argument is, well, people have cell phones and cameras, and how come we don't have them? Well, I think you just stated it perfectly. Usually you're caught off guard, and it happens when you least expect it, and even if you catch something, it's going to be shaky, and it's going to be so short, you'll probably get a blob or a blur.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, even with the best cell phone cameras, it's still going to happen. I mean, the frame rate's not like, all this, I don't know. It's just, people are so quick to debunk things, and when I look at stuff, and I'm not, I may not be able to say that it's legit, but at the same time, like, I think everything's somewhat credible unless you know otherwise. That's the way I look at it. I mean, there's a good possibility. I was like, well, that looks fake, or that looks photoshopped. Well, I mean, I've seen stuff that looks photoshopped in real life, so.
Yeah. How do you now that you're a seasoned hunter now, and you're a woodsman and whatnot? Do you take any steps when you're out in the woods now to possibly take evidence or photograph or anything like that now in case it happens again?
Well, I mean, when I'm out hunting and stuff like that, or I'm out hiking, I'm horrible at taking pictures. Like everybody takes all the pictures of their family stuff. I forget. I'm too into the moment and stuff like that. I don't want to stop what I'm doing just to take pictures when I can be having fun doing what I'm doing. I mean, so I don't pack a camera around with me. I have my cell phone. It's about half the time it's on. the other half of the time it's probably not. Because I don't, if I'm out there doing stuff like that, I don't want to have people calling me and stuff. It's my time.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like when I'm out fishing, it's like meditation. But I do carry in my backpack, I do carry about a half dozen Ziplocs at all times. In fact, I yelled at Cody for that when he was talking about his scat that he found, and I was like, "You didn't collect anything?" He's like, "I didn't have anything to collect anything with." I'm like, well, "Ziplocs are light. You know, I mean, hell, anything is better than nothing."
Right.
So, I mean,
and the scat that we had found out there, I mean, there was definitely some scat out there that was, I had no doubt was bear. And then the samples he sent me, they just looked different than the bear scat. The same grassy substance and some other things that looked, you know, I'm not ruling out bear by no means. Very well could be a bear because there's obviously a bear in that area. But there were some anomalies like the size of the logs, as I'll describe them, that were rather large that I've not seen bear capable of, but I can't rule it out. Yeah, exactly. And this time of year, I would imagine if Sasquatch are in these areas, they're eating very much along the lines of what a bear would eat. You know, grass and berries and
it's what's available. They're omnivore.
Exactly. I mean, and with the bear scat, you could see. I mean, there was a really fresh pile there that I couldn't definitely say it was bear, but it looked bear-like, and there was grass in it and whatnot, and I found wild strawberries up there and some other stuff, and
salmon berries are coming on.
They're starting to come on now. Yeah, I mean these bears, black bears are not true hibernators. They don't hibernate per se. They'll get up and forage and whatnot, but this is the time they start fattening up or trying to get out there and eat and whatnot. And so in the bear scat, I did see, grass and stuff. And in this slightly unusual scat, rather large, I saw a lot of similarities there. And it was dark. And so, I don't know. I'm going to have it analyzed. You can't really pull DNA from scat, but you can analyze and kind of rule out some stuff and rule in some stuff, sort of scenario.
Yeah. It just adds to the collection pretty much.
Exactly.
I would imagine it eats the same thing as a bear, because the bear is pretty much the only omnivorous animal that's out there, other than humans.
Oh, it definitely wasn't cat scat. Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't cougar scat, because I actually did find some cougar scat out there. It was partially buried, and the reason I found it was because I saw some what looked like a cat scratching post or something of that nature, and I started looking around, and I saw this little pile, and I saw something sticking out of this pile, and I dug at it, and I found definite cat scat, cougar scat, and it was rather large. Must have been a pretty good sized cat, but but nothing like the scat that was found in that area.
Yeah, well, Cody, when he came back from going up there with his buddy a couple weeks ago, he sent me all the pictures and stuff that he had, and the video of the knocks and stuff. I can't say that with the knocks and stuff. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but
right.
I think it's good for him though, because he'll learn to be more prepared next time. I mean, he's been planning this for a long time. It was kind of all the last minute packing and getting everything rounded up. But now he knows what he should bring.
Right. Yeah, he's a little bit better prepared. He's very enthusiastic, and Cody's just a great guy. And we did go over some stuff, and I did leave a trail camera up in this area in a specific point. So, but the knocks were interesting though, because he sent me a link. He sent me those knocks, and you hear his buddy chopping wood. I think was what was going on. He was chopping wood, and then he kind of stopped for a second, and then you get this sort of response, and it kind of mimicked the chopping noises, and that was pretty interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah. It sounded very much like wood on wood. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a different speed.
Different speed. Yes.
It was. I don't know. It was hard to say.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. It's hard to say. It's not definitive. Not saying Sasquatch did it at all. You didn't see Sasquatch doing it, so you can. You just put in the interesting pile, and move on from there. And that I appreciate, you telling your story and stuff. And and you definitely come across as a logical person who's not saying Sasquatch does this and Sasquatch does that. You're just reporting what you've encountered, and I really appreciate that, and I know Gunnar does.
Yeah, very cool.
He said he's going hiking up there.
Yeah.
How close are you going to be to timber?
We'll be a little bit west of that. I mean, we'll come out probably in mist, so not too far away at all.
Well, because the reason I'm asking is about 8 months ago or so, my mom and her boyfriend and their good friend, who's like a third or fourth generation logger, been in the woods his whole life kind of thing, they were up there making camp. It was after dark, and got a scream, if you will, that was nothing that any of them had ever heard. And I mean, to the point where it almost shook the windows in the truck, and really it was right outside of timber, just west of timber. And that was, like I said, 8 months ago. So I think your good opportunities there is what I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stories out that way. I actually investigated a report on out past mist, on the Nehalem River.
Yeah.
Several years ago, where a guy had come out his door like at 11:30 at night, and the water was really high, and something was going down the other side of the bank and was like doing whoop whoop, and he first thought it was like an owl.
Yeah.
And then he started hearing like something splashing in the water at the same time. So he got freaked out. His dog actually turned around and ran back in the house, and he went and eventually got his gun and shot it off in the air, and it stopped for a little bit, but it moved down and he could hear something moving on the bank on the other side of the river. And it was not a place where anybody was going to be at that, given those conditions. It was not easy to get to the other side of the river, and so
no trails or nothing like that.
Yeah, no. So always
it scared them straight into the truck and back home. They actually left their tent there, half set up, and went back like 3 days later and got it. So.
Oh wow,
yeah.
I mean, for a third generation logger who's all manly man and in the woods and stuff, for him to be freaked out like that, I mean, it was obviously something.
Yeah.
And I know the guy too. I mean, he's not the type of guy that would make stuff up like that. I mean, he's your typical logger, but he's no bullshitter.
I've talked to guys that hunt are bear hunters and stuff that have had stuff in the Salmonberry area. And it freaks. I mean, you think about it. You're a hunter and you're out in the woods your whole life, and you think you're the top apex predator out there, and then all of a sudden you find out there's something that's been out in the woods with you the whole time that you didn't know you're there. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I can see. I can see that being shaking your. I mean, it's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Before you had your encounter, Before you had your encounter, did you have any point of reference? Have you heard of Bigfoot before that, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, growing up, I watched Harry and the Hendersons and all that kind of stuff. Growing up, but my grandpa, when my mom was, she was probably 10 or so, they were camping kind of over by Canita, and my grandpa was on a hike. He was, avid outdoorsman and stuff, and he was on a hike, and he was about 10 miles from camp, and saw a track out in the middle of nowhere. And this is, it's right around the time of the Patterson footage and stuff like that, I guess. Late 60s, early 70s and stuff. But he actually ran back to camp, grabbed the camera, ran back, and took a picture of it. We actually have it. My grandma's got it on a slide. It's a track from up there, but the same day there's a dog showed up at the camp, like a stray dog, and hid underneath their trailer for like 2.5 days. Wouldn't come out, wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink, nothing. Just hid underneath there and shaking. So I mean that got them kind of into it, and growing up hearing these stories and everything. Of course I was intrigued by it and stuff like that. But it didn't prepare me. We'll say that.
Mm-hmm. And Justin, you know what I find? Have you reported this anywhere else? Like, say, have you contacted BFRO? Have you?
I sent Cliff Barrickman an email, and I knew he's from Portland and stuff, and we probably know the area. And at the time when I sent him that, it was actually before you had contacted me, I believe.
Recently.
I didn't know who to reach out to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was recent. Yeah, I didn't. Right around the same time that I talked to you and Cliff, that's the first time I've ever actually reported it to anything official.
Gotcha. And that was prior to you posting in that fishing forum?
It was right around the same time. I'm not sure which came first, but it was right around that time. Because that was the first time, I just, discovered the forums, and that was the first time that there was, actually a group where you could talk about it and not be, ridiculed and stuff like that. Not that I care, because, I know what I saw, I know who I am, I like who I am, and I don't care what anybody else has to say, but it was just kind of nice to be around like-minded people discussing it. Or for the most part, a lot of people are in there just basically making people feel bad, but... Yeah,
exactly. They ridicule and whatnot, but it's fascinating because of some of these encounters and stuff that you spoke of tonight. I mean, you're not going to find these on any. You're going to find them online. These are stories and encounters that you're just telling us on air. Probably for the first time, and they're not out there to be found. And I find that there are so many encounters and reports that mimic this, and that people don't reach out because they don't know who to reach out to, or they don't want to because of the ridicule.
Yeah. Well, I imagine for every one that gets reported, there's probably 1,000 of them that don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think
it adds up. I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer. I mean, it's obvious that there's something out there. I mean, why would there be thousands and thousands of people talking about this? So
I think Grover Krantz projected that for every one encounter that was reported, probably 100. I mean, and of course that's just a guess, but I mean, it's amazing as how many people I've run across that they've never reported it anywhere, but have shared their stories with me. So it's interesting. I appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us, because it's compelling to me, and just the way you described it, and arm swing. You don't get a lot of arm swing with a bear. Obviously
no. And they're pretty. I mean, even a circus bear is clumsy on two legs.
Yeah. They don't walk gracefully. That's for sure.
No, they're just kind of plodding around.
Yeah. Little short steps.
And as far as I'm not sure that I want definitive proof to be out there. I was telling Shane that, I'm not sure that personally that I want them to prove the existence of Bigfoot. Mainly for the species. I mean, I respect the species that do what they do for so long. I mean, the stories go back thousands of years, with Native Americans and stuff. I mean, for this species to be able to be out there doing what it's doing and doing it pretty much, undetected. I'd hate to see what man will do to that if they prove that it's, real beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, there'll be guys out there with guns shooting each other and ghillie suits, and and I just don't think that it'd be good for the species. I mean, I know they're real. I've seen it, but I don't know that I want the masses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know how. I mean, first of all, I don't. Even if people knew they were proven in, we found one body or whatever. They're not easy to find. So people going out and trying to hunt them, good luck with that.
But I mean, you'll have groups. I mean, it's like the movie Hard Target. They'll be hunting humans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
maybe
all this stuff could happen.
No, I mean,
I'd hate to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I always the people that put up the argument that we need to kill one to protect them, because we need to protect their habitat. Well, we need to protect that habitat anyway for the animals we already prove exist. So that, to me, that's like, hey, I just want to kill one. I mean, that's,
I'm not pro killing it at all.
Yeah, and I can tell you one thing for sure: Bigfoot doesn't give a crap about being proven one way or the other. So that's just for our.
He's going to adapt.
Yeah. So.
Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, man. I really enjoyed, talking to you again, and for you coming out and sharing this encounter, and other possible encounters as well. And I hope to meet you one day, man, and maybe go out to some areas and do some field work. I really would enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, you're only right over the hill from me, so it's not like it's
exactly.
so
We're
far.
not too far away, and
Hillsborough, so.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. And I have plans with going out with your buddy Cody again, and researching more in his area, and maybe making out to Longview at some point. But really appreciate you joining us, man. I really do.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll hook up sometime, because I'm going to go with Cody to his place, and he's going to come with me to mine.
Perfect.
So I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Well, keep in
touch.
touch.
Well, thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good day.
You bet. You too.
All right. Bye.
No, I just like the way that Justin his description. I mean, was spot on. I mean, it's and no elaboration. No, he didn't get into like very pragmatic about not everything's Bigfoot. Just sounds like a straight, pretty straight up guy. He'd have no reason to if he was gonna, make up a story, you'd think that it would be way more elaborate than a 4 or 5 second encounter when you're 15 years old. So that's
and like I said, I talked to him on the phone at length, and I know he just recently reached out to Cliff Brackman and whatnot. So. I find his story very compelling. Was I there to see what he saw? No, but I can put that into the interesting realm. I mean, even looking back at his encounter as a hunter, and he's been hunting for a while now, he's still perplexed by what he saw, and he did say it was bipedal. So you're even looking at and bears do go bipedal at times. Even looking at a very swift and large bear. Or you're looking at, whatever you're looking at.
Well, his description of arm swing to me kind of puts that outside of, you don't see, bears do not arm swing. Their arms, their little stubby legs are out in front of them when they're walking. And and the way he talked about it, you're right. When you see a bear walking, now, I mean, if it was
their arms hang at their sides. Their arms hang at their sides.
Yeah. But,
and the weight, the weight of this thing, and he described a possible auburn red tint to the hair, which is very reported a lot of times with Sasquatch. He mentioned possibly 4 inch long. He said fur, and I forgot to ask him if he meant to say hair or if that was just what he just described. But he said 4 inches, regardless.
Right.
So that by itself is also very interesting, and then with the elk coming through, the way with the demeanor and the way they came through at the same time, I mean that's also interesting because how many reports have you heard or taken in that mimic this? I mean, quite a few.
Yeah, no, that's a classic report of sounds like Bigfoot chasing a couple elk, and it's interesting that he didn't seem to even notice that he and his dad were there. So,
right.
I mean, I find that report very credible. So,
it's a great report. It's fantastic. We have Jamie on the line. Do you want to take him now?
Sure. Let's go ahead.
All right, Jamie, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you?
Great, man. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Really stoked that you joined us.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome stuff.
Thanks for coming on, Jamie.
Oh yeah, anytime. I'm
all right.
really,
well, Jamie,
really interested in the subject.
And that's fantastic. Jamie, give the audience a little perspective, if you don't mind, a little bit of your background. You don't have to go into specifics, just a little bit of your background, and your interest in Sasquatch in general before your sighting and whatnot?
Okay. Well, I grew up in East Texas and spent my whole life out, hunting and fishing and being in the woods like most kids in East Texas. And I've always been into, I guess, the subject, just because you hear stories out here, from time to time about people seeing things or hearing things. Never really necessarily thought that I believed in anything for sure, but I sure didn't disbelieve, So I just always been interested in the subject, watched all the shows I could watch, stuff like that, and never really thought I'd see something until I did.
So Jamie, tell us? I mean, when was your encounter, and what happened?
Okay, back in I guess it was about 2004. I was working 2 jobs, and at night 2 or 3 times a week I was delivering auto parts for a company, and I had a regular route, went up around northeast Texas and just off into Louisiana. One night in particular, I was driving. I was close to Atlanta, Texas, and came around an S-curve, and it's just one of those really sharp, windy curves to where, it was such a sharp turn. My headlights went all the way to the left on the first part of it and shined off in the woods. You couldn't even hardly see the road. When I came back around the right, it did the same thing. And when I came around to the right, that's when I saw something step over a 6-strand barbed wire fence with ease, and just I slammed my brakes on, and it was pretty amazing. The sighting, I guess, was probably a matter of seconds, 3 to 5 tops. But I saw it clear as day. Now, it was late at night. It was probably about anywhere from 12:30 to 1, maybe 2 a.m. And but yeah, I saw what I knew wasn't a man and wasn't a bear step over a barbed wire fence, stop, look at me, and then continue on into the wood line.
So the whole length of your encounter was like, how long did you say it was?
Oh, it may have been. I can say from the time I saw something moving to the time it went off, it probably, oh shoot, it was far less than a minute. But when I got a really, really good, I could see it moving, but when I got a really, really good look, was probably less than 10 seconds.
So and you're zipping down the road in your truck, and so first you see some kind of movement, and when you had your best look at it, was that when it was stepping over the fence, or as it was walking, or?
No, I caught it right as it was stepping over the fence, and I'm telling you, this thing was big. I mean, big. So you could imagine. No, I'm not very tall myself. I'm about 5'10", and I step up to a fence that height, and it's going to hit me, I guess right under my chest. And this thing just, by the time I slammed my brakes on, it's about the time it was stepping over, and it just stepped over it, swung its leg like it was nothing. It had to be probably, at minimum 7 foot tall, whatever it was.
So it just like.
And this area, can you describe the area roughly? I mean, it's not. How far away from folk is it?
Oh shoot, it's probably not even 30-minute drive from Fouke, Arkansas. Right there. Everybody knows Legend Boggy Creek.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's that same exact type of area. If everybody remembers watching the movie, which I'm sure I know we all have, probably everybody listening has. It's the same kind of area. Rivers run through it. Some swamps and bayou kind of areas. Very thick vegetation. Lot of places to hide.
Right. And with your encounter, I mean, can you describe it a little bit? I mean, were your lights right on it at one point, and did you see maybe the color of the hair, the length of the hair, possibly could you estimate the height of this thing?
Yeah, well, absolutely. When I saw something move as I was coming around that curve, you could see something. I guess the best way to describe it is the periphery of the headlights. Off to the side of the headlights, just barely shining on something. I could tell it was moving. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought because there's a lot of cattle and things like that, and all kinds of things running around. And it was a very sharp curve, and I was driving a big delivery van, which they're kind of top heavy anyway, so it was about a 35, 45 mile an hour curve. So I was taking about 25 just because of how top heavy that van was. So I had plenty of time to slow down and stop. When I came around, I saw something, and it was, I didn't know what I was looking at, yet, but I knew it was big. So I just, it's the middle of the night. I wasn't worried about cars on the highway. I was the only person I'd seen for 30 minutes. I slammed the brakes on to take a look, and like I say, that's about the time it was stepping over. It was brown. It wasn't black. Of course, it was under those headlights. It almost looked, I know a lot of people say a reddish brown. I guess maybe a rusty color brown, but more brown. The hair was, I don't know, probably about 4 to 6 inches hanging, because when it stepped over, it kind of did almost the same movement. If you can imagine yourself stepping over, how you kind of put your arms up, for balance, it kind of did the same thing, and I could see the size of its arms and muscles and, the hair hanging off. I guess I'd say 4 to 6 inches. Height-wise, tall enough to step over that. I mean, it didn't use a hand to press down on anything like we would trying to get over a barbed wire fence. So it had to be at least 7 foot, maybe taller.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of stepped on your brakes a little bit you see this thing stepping over a fence 7 feet or higher, tall, and step on your brakes and get a pretty good view of it. So what did you do? I mean, afterwards, do you just drive on to your destination, or?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds funny, but I could kill myself. Of course, this was back in 2004, and I don't even know if I had a cell phone. If I did, it was a little old flip phone, and there were no cameras on them. I had a camera in the van, and if I had a thought for a second that I was going to see something like that, of course, who does? I could have easily tried to take a picture, but I was just in complete shock. I was, honest to God, scared every time I got out of the van the rest of the night, because every time I made a delivery to the back of the store, and everything's wooded in that area, and it really affected me.
Now, before your encounter, did you had you said you'd had an interest for your whole life. So I mean, when you saw it, you that's a friggin' Bigfoot. Pretty much. I mean, I try to be rational about it, as rational as you can be, and go through the possible scenarios. But in that part of the country, we have occasionally you'll see a black bear. Now, Atlanta is actually farther north than parts of southern Arkansas, and we know that there are bears in Arkansas, but I've never seen one. So I try to think, well, was it a bear? But I mean, a bear can get on 2 legs every once in a while, but they're not going to step over a fence. Then I tried to rule out, that kind of ruled that out. Then I started thinking about, well,
of course, what would a person in a suit be walking around in the middle of the night? And if it was a person, it was a huge person in a suit, so I kind of ruled that out. And, I figured, I'd seen a Sasquatch. I saw Bigfoot.
And you mentioned that it looked at you, right?
Oh, yeah. What it did when it stepped over the fence, I guess it was, I couldn't see its face that well. I could see, if you were to ask me what its nose looked like, I really couldn't tell you. I could see was, holes and nostrils. I guess it's because my headlights were directly on it with the backdrop of the trees and everything like that. It just kind of, shined on it and it turned its head. When it stepped over, you could tell that it was probably as shocked to see me as I was to see it, because, it turned and just kind of looked at me and just hurried off into the tree line there. And I got home the next morning, and that's when I got on and made what used to be the TRBC report there, and had a guy come out and investigate it, and he had some interesting findings, but nothing conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
any other features that you noticed that kind of stuck out to you? I mean, you said it looked brown, hair length possibly, or and whatnot.
Well, yeah, it was extremely wide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned big.
yeah, extremely wide. It didn't have as much hair. It was covered 4 to 6 inches, almost everywhere. What surprised me is the hair that it didn't have on its face, and it had less hair around its abdomen and chest area. Now, it still had hair, but it wasn't as thick. Now, I'm not like you see a gorilla, where some of the gorillas, are almost looks like they're barren of hair right there. It still had hair, but it was not as thick. It was extremely muscular. That's one of the things that popped out to me, is just how thick and wide it was. I was able to see it from the front and the side, because when it stepped over, that's when it turned, and front to back, it had to be 2 or 3 of me, and I'm a 240-pound man, ex-college football player and weightlifter and stuff like that. I'd be tiny compared to what this was.
So
go ahead.
Since you had your encounter, did it spur you to go out and look for Bigfoot, or did it make any that kind of impression on you?
Oh, absolutely. It's completely changed my life. It's made me absolutely obsessed. I've talked to anyone and everyone I can talk to. I've gone out a few times with some buddies, and just kind of gone camp. Every time I go camping, I'm on the lookout. Been in some interesting areas. Heard some things before that sounded like wood knocks, but of course, who knows? The forest the woods are a big place. I hadn't gone out as much as I'd like to, just because of work. I stay super busy. I work every other weekend. But, yeah, it's definitely changed my life. I'm trying to get into anything and everything I can get into, as far as finding out more and research and knowledge of the, of Bigfoot and everything about it.
I always find that people, you had a curiosity before, so you were like, but you had never seen one, so you had I call it are they? And then you passed through that doorway of you had the encounter, and then
curiosity kicks. I mean, now you know they're real.
Right.
Now, people shift into the what are they? You know, that's the difference. Once people have that encounter, it's like there's a lot. Your response is similar to a lot of people I talk to, Shane included. Is, you know, he had a curiosity before, and then he has confirmation that, you know, in his own experience now, and then people become about like, wow, I want to know what these things are, what they do, you know, why are they able to elude man so well? So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just it. Just this past weekend, I drove through the big, you know, Sam Houston State Park and Davy Crockett National Forest right here in East Texas, and, you know, I can't help but just look at the tree line every time I'm driving through, wondering, you know, what's out there and what, you know. I know what's out there, but, you know, and that's just it. I've never been to the Pacific Northwest. I know how thick everything is up there, you know, and that's one thing. I know y'all said it on, you know, I'm a listener of the show also, and y'all have had people talk about this area, but it's absolutely amazing how thick the woods are down here, to where, you know, if something didn't want to be seen, it could hide, but just with the encroachment of, you know, us, people and population, you know, that's what I find interesting, how they're able to stay so hidden.
Yeah. Jamie, have you heard, you know, after your encounter, have you heard of other reports in this area other than the well-known ones? I mean, have you had other people reach out to you going, you know what, I saw something in this area or close by, or this is what happened to me?
Oh, absolutely. And see, it's everybody that sees something, they're going to catch a lot of, just catch hell from people. I don't know a better way to say it. So
yeah,
I'm not, you know, I'll talk to people about it and not be embarrassed about it, because, I mean, what's there to be embarrassed about? You saw something that half the people, or more than half the people in the world, don't believe it even exists, but you saw it with your own eyes. So, you know, you got to be a little bit defiant when it comes to people telling you it doesn't exist. So I've gone out of the way to try to talk to people, and had people, because I've told what I've seen, I've had people come to me and tell me stories and encounters that they've had. So this part of East Texas is fairly rich with sightings and encounters. I've had probably 4 or 5 people tell me that they've seen something.
That's funny, because I found that to be very true. People that have had encounters are, you know, they want to find somebody that they can talk to without the risk of being ridiculed, that are not going to tell them they're nuts.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that's the biggest issue. You don't want anybody to tell you you're crazy.
Right.
But you know, it's a tight rope to walk. You know, I mean, you encountered something that you cannot explain, that you've never seen before, and you know that it's unique, and yet, where do you go from there? I mean, where do you go from there? It's on, you know, it's tough.
It is, absolutely. You know, if I had the money or the time to put everything into it, I mean, that's how much it affected me. Honestly, I joke with my wife about, if I won the lottery, I'm just going to live in the woods for the rest of my life. She's like, that's kind of backwards from winning the lottery, I think.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. No you'll live in a mansion in the woods, or the mansion in the woods will be your mansion.
Exactly. It would take me having a lot of money just to go back to the old ways.
Oh.
No, so yeah, it's something that, like I say, it's that sighting just completely changed my life. I mean, I've got friends and family that, you know, joke with me and tell me I'm crazy or not crazy, but, you know, people don't believe until they see something.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it takes a lot of times, you know. I mean, unless this is unless you really research the subject and actually consider yourself a researcher or enthusiast and get out in the woods and whatnot and look at, you know, interview witnesses and whatnot. I mean, it's a fringe subject regardless, but it really takes. I mean, at this point, it takes a lot of whim to actually consider this thing to be real, because I mean there is a lack of evidence. I mean, there truly is, and a lack of substance, unfortunately. But I think if you really look at this subject seriously, you can actually find some good tidbits and some possibilities in that. I know I have. Beside, you know, if I were to toss my sighting out the window and, you know, my subsequent findings, I would still look at it reasonably and logically and go, well, there's a chance.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and there's the things that people see on a daily basis that they don't realize might be signs of stuff. You know, when I was a kid growing up in the woods, literally we'd go outside when the sun came up, and if we were hungry, we might check back in, and we'd come in when it was dark. You know, that's the way it was, you know, out here growing up. And I remember my entire childhood seeing things that I didn't know what I was looking at, but tree structures and, you know, the stuff that shouldn't have been there in the woods that now that I've started doing some research, you know, it really makes you, you know, raise your eyebrows and think, well, you know, what's really going on out here?
Right. Yeah. A lot of oddities and stuff that you can't explain. I mean,
yeah.
It really opens your eyes after you've had an encounter. It really opens your eyes as to the possibilities, and you start really looking at the subject in a different, you know, obviously in a different eye set.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
the one thing
I've not had a personal encounter yet. So, you know, knowing people that have had people like Shane and like yourself that seem credible. I don't come off as crazy, very pragmatic. You know, I'm 99.97% sure that they exist. But it's funny because I think almost everybody who hasn't had that confirmation yet reserves some degree of that everybody that has made a report is nuts. So
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't somewhat of a believer before, when I say a believer, I don't know that I was a believer, but I was at least somewhat interested. If I hadn't seen what I had seen, then I understand completely what you're saying. You know, people, it's one of those kind of things. People are not going to believe it until they see it. And I can't blame them for that because it's something so rare. You know?
Yeah, extremely rare. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jamie, I mean, what do you hope happens? We were just talking to Justin. He actually said he hopes that they don't actually get proven. He'd actually kind of hate to see that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's funny. You know, they said that, you know, if they get proven, it takes away part of the fun. You know, some of the mysticism about it. But at the same time, you know, there's a huge part of me that wants them to be proven just to validate people like me and Shane and everyone else that's seen something. You know, I don't go at it, you know, I don't look at it like, I told you so. But, right. You know, it would be nice to be able to finally definitively prove without a shadow of a doubt that all these thousands of people saying they're seeing something, it's some sort of, I don't know, mass hallucination. You know, I honestly, I hope we do bring one in, and whichever way we can. If we've got to shoot one and bring it in to prove it, then I'm all for it. But you know, I'll tell you right now, if I was in the woods by myself and I saw that, just for fear of there being others around, I don't know that I could pull the trigger.
But I think that's something that some people that are pro-kill don't think about. They think that, oh yeah, I'll go shoot one and haul it out of the woods. But that's funny because we talk about that. It's like not the one that you're shooting that you need to be worried about. It's the ones that you don't see. The ones that you don't see that you might have to be concerned about. So.
Absolutely. I mean, and not to mention the fact you're by yourself and you drop something that weighs 800 pounds. What are you going to do with it anyway?
Yeah, you better have an exit strategy.
I was going to say I feel like I'm a fairly in shape man, but I'm pretty sure I couldn't drag an 800-pound corpse out of the woods.
Well, it's funny because we talk about what do you do if because I'm not pro kill. I can't imagine shooting one because I think it just would be difficult for me to do because I think I don't know how, what if I just shot the last one, or how close they are to human. That those kind of things bother me about going out there with the idea to shoot one. I like it, but what would we do if we found a body? We found one that fell off a cliff, and we find the Holy Grail. Well, I mean, we've talked about you cut a hand off, you cut parts off and take those back with you. So, but yeah.
Well, that'd be
however
good. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. No, but I mean that. But you're right. You're not going to be hauling a full-grown male Sasquatch back out of the woods. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's just it. I think something like you said would be great. I mean, if we could find, that would probably be the best case scenario. If you could find one that was already dead and be able to take a hand or an arm or something, because you don't need a whole body for DNA. And of course, yeah, I don't know what they are. I don't lean towards, just from what I saw, I don't lean towards the human ancestor line, I guess. What I saw seemed just very animalistic, but I've we've all heard people say they've seen them and they look just in different parts of the country look almost human. So that would be the thing. You pull your gun up and you look through your crosshairs and your scope and you're looking at something that looks like Mr. You looking back at us, just bigger and hairier. It would be hard to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Well, I always, I've had people say, well, we need to prove they exist to protect the species, and I think, well, and so that we can protect our environment, and well, there's plenty of known animals that live in the same environment, so if we need to be protecting that environment, shouldn't we already be doing it? And we don't need it to prove an unknown species. Just say, hey, we need to protect the woods from, encroachment, and because, and frankly, I don't think that, I'm pretty sure that Bigfoot doesn't care one way or another to be proven, or they'd walk into town already and say, hey, we need your help.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and thinking back on it, I really do think that, and I'm sure y'all heard this 100 times, but I think that's going on right now. I know I was doing some work back years ago, almost 10 years ago, probably just a year or two after my sighting, and we were down in the big thicket working way off in the middle of the woods, and we had to shut down because there was some reemergence of some woodpecker that's since been proven that it never went extinct or was endangered. But at the time, we had to clear the woods before the sun went down. They wouldn't let us in the woods until the sun came up, and they wouldn't let us. We had to leave the woods before the sun went down, which makes you wonder, why us being out there would interrupt a woodpecker so stinking much. You know, it almost makes you speculate that there's something else going on.
Possible. I mean, we went through the whole spotted owl debacle up here, where you know they were shutting down woods, and they were concerned that the spotted owl was not, you know, needed. And it's funny, as the spotted owl adapted and moved into, you know, they got to have old growth, and then all of a sudden they could find them in new growth.
Right.
It's like, and all of a sudden,
your head.
Yeah, just as fast as it blew up, it subsided. It was crazy. So
right, it almost makes you think there was some incident happened, or there was something going on at the time, and you know, animals that are already proven to be in those areas, you know, that are protected, they say, okay, well, this is, I mean, it's another hunter. All they have to do is say, hey, watch out for the spotted owl. You know, but I don't know. That's just,
yeah,
I can't prove anything.
Jamie, where did you first post your encounter? I believe it was with the group NOAC out of Texas.
Yes, it was. It was when it was the Texas Bigfoot Research Center or Conservancy. Mm-hmm. They changed the name before that, and then of course it's on the NOAC site now. And I got a phone call.
Well, when did you first post? I mean, share that with them. What was it? Shortly after encounter, or?
It was that morning.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I mean, that morning I came home, got on the internet, and started looking around. You know, just search engines, Texas Bigfoot, you know, this and that, and came up on it, and you know, had to put it down. And you know, and it's one of the best parts of the story is, luckily. And I'd have to look back at it, but I believe it was Derek Collier, which, you know, is fairly well known, especially in this area with the Bigfoot research. Went out, believe he told me his mother lived in Atlanta, and he'd planned on going out to visit her that day anyway. So he went out, and I told him about where I was at, and he's familiar with the area. So he went out to that spot, and it had been raining a little bit, so we couldn't find definitive tracks. I say we, I didn't go out there, but he said he found really, really large impressions right there by the fence row in the coming up to the wood line, and as you went into the wood line, trees were broken off, you know, branches and saplings were broken off at, you know, anywhere from 6 to 8 feet. Like something really large was walking through there. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, interesting. But I mean, what are your thoughts on? I mean, you reached out to NOAC. Was that because, or you know, what was formerly was not NOAC at the time per se, but what were your thoughts on that group at the time? Was that your only avenue you thought that you could share an encounter?
Well, I really, at that time, I certainly, if somebody had said, you know, BRFO or whatever, I had no idea anything existed. You know, as far as communities for sightings and stuff like that, I looked up something and, I typed in Texas Bigfoot sightings because I guess I wanted somebody that was more local to, look at it, or I was just curious if anybody else had seen anything in that area, and that was my main reason for doing that with the NOAC, is because I was just really interested in finding out if there had been other sightings in that area, or, what all was going on in this area compared to, not that I don't care about the rest of the United States, but at the time I was really just interested in these Texas, trying, figuring out what because I was 95% sure what I'd seen. I just, everybody wants some validation, and I was just trying to find somebody that could, talk to me and validate that to a certain extent.
Right. And did you find that help there, or did they? I mean, how thorough were they with you?
I did. They I called and talked with, or they called me because I left my contact information. Kind of gave them a rundown of what happened, and that's when he told me that he was going out of that area anyway. So he called me back within a day or two and told me his findings, and then he proceeded to post his findings on the site. Now, if you look on the site, mine is listed under, I believe it just says truck driver because I was driving a delivery van in Cass County, Texas, and you can find his whole report there. But no, I was happy with he seemed like he did a thorough job of investigating, and that was my main reason for looking for someone close to go out and look at it, because to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to go back out there.
Right. Yeah.
Take yourself until you see something like that. Right.
Kind of changes your perspective that you're not the biggest, baddest thing out there in the woods, possibly.
Oh no, not. And that's just fun. I was 24 years old and in good shape, and like most 24-year-olds, I thought I was the baddest thing walking the planet, and then you see something like that, and you just realize really quick that you're not.
Yeah, it changes your perspective of things, and it's kind of a mind-blowing experience because, you spend so much time out in the woods or driving around or whatever have you, whether you're a hunter or just somebody that's in these areas, and for many of the people that I've spoken to that have been lifelong hunters or hikers and whatnot, they're like, no way. And then they have this encounter, and it just blows their mind. They're like, well, how come I've not experienced this before? How come this has not happened before? And how come I'm unaware that these things are out there? Have they been out there the whole time? And it really flips you upside down. It does. It's mind-boggling.
And that's just it. We're deer hunters and things like that. My son, he's 13, and he's been hunting with me for a couple of years, and he's as big as I am now, but just because he's big doesn't mean he's mature. So he thinks that which he's old enough, and I guess this is one of the things that changed me. If I'd never seen that in the woods, I would have already let him go by himself. But it's changed me so much that I wouldn't say that I'm afraid to go in the woods, but where I used to not be cautious of anything, now I'm, continually hearing stuff, and I look over my shoulder, and and I'm scared for him to go out and sit in the stand by himself, and just things like that.
Well, since you've been out, since your encounter, Jamie, in whatnot, what have you encountered as a turnoff, or is there any groups or avenues that you've looked at to be a positive, informative, group, or is there specific people out there that you lean towards reaching out to?
Well, I can honestly say that any group that leans more toward this being an animal or, like Noack, a wood ape, I'm a little more comfortable with that. Everybody has their own opinion on things,
right?
But the whole cloaking and telepathy and no, I don't believe in that at all. Which I can't be judgmental because half the people I talk to say they don't believe in Sasquatch at all. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't sit here and tell you I've seen a Bigfoot and somebody says something, I'm like, well, no, you're an idiot. I just personally don't lean that direction. But anything's possible, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just not somewhere where you spend your time. You obviously feel that this is a flesh and blood creature with no supernatural capabilities that it remains unknown because of its circumstances and whatnot?
I do. I really do. I mean, y'all know as well as I do the acreage, just the pure acreage in the United States that even though we've got the part of Texas that I'm talking about, you've got Houston right there in the south end of it. On the north end of it, you've got Shreveport, Louisiana. Then you've got, Tyler and Longview and Dallas-Fort Worth area over there. All these bigger cities, people would think, well, there's no way that anything could live out there. But in my line of work, I do a lot of driving, and you go through these towns that don't even have a stoplight, and you won't hit the next town for 30 miles. And there's nothing, and there's nothing but trees and woods everywhere around them,
Right.
So I think it's very feasible for something to be out there. I mean, it's the resources are there, all the deer, all the hogs, all the, of course, Texas, we've got a huge hog population, which would keep any predator of any sort, well fed and taken care of. So, I think that everything's there for, a viable population of anything.
Yeah, and I get a real appreciation for the amount of areas that, in just the wide expanse of an area that something that exists. I got that weekend. I was out towards Mount Adams, and I could see Mount Hood to my left and Adams to my right, and it was a straight line. And the extensiveness of the forest was just profound. I was like, holy moly! Here we are in an area where it's a logging road. And not now it's not a used logging road. I mean, there's logs and there's trees falling over and it's brushy. And I was going, holy moly, wow, this is amazing. The massive forest down this area, from Mount Hood to Mount Adams, and I've been up to Mount St. Helens and seen the vastness out there. And we were in our Facebook page, someone mentioned, why don't you guys cover or get someone on the show talk about the vastness out at northern Ontario. And we've had a guest on the show before, but really haven't covered it extensively. But there is so much forest out there. We're talking about man-made areas that we travel mostly. I mean, I do go off the beaten trail, but to an extent, because I'm limited with time. If I could spend 3 months in an area, I can go really remote, and who knows what you could find. Then you're really putting yourself out in the elements for an extended period of time. But it's crazy. Everybody thinks nowadays that everything's been covered and there's all this research going on and whatnot, but it's a needle in a haystack, in my opinion.
I agree.
Why hasn't somebody got a good photo? Everybody's got a camera now, and their cell phones. Well, because most Bigfoot encounters are a lot like yours is, Jamie. I mean, you don't expect it. I mean, you were in no position to take a picture. You're driving a truck, and you're not going to probably be digging around for your cell phone while you're driving down the road. And
no.
And they're so brief that people are not ready, and it's over before it started, and people don't have the opportunity to take a good picture. That's
yeah, and that's just it, and it's such an absolutely shocking event. It really is that I guess your brain's just trying to take in what you're seeing. The last thing that went through my mind was I need to take a picture. Now, of course, hindsight's 2020. I was like, man, why didn't I take a picture? But you're just soaking it all in. You're amazed at what you're seeing. And I think that's probably what happens the majority of the time. Like you said, they're fleeting events. They happen quick. You see them and then they're gone. You're not gonna, if you've never seen something like this, you're not gonna take your eyes off of it and try to fumble and find, like you said, your cell phone or your camera. And I think that's one of the main reasons we don't have more pictures than we do.
And that's, the thing is, the hindsight is 2020 is like, no, I wish I had a. But who's driving around with a camera all the time in their hand? I mean, we even as I'm driving out to research areas and stuff. I was just talking to my girlfriend today as we were coming back from our research areas. Like, we got 6 or 7 people driving into this area, and on occasion I like to actually take a webcam and I put my laptop up and sit in the passenger seat and put my webcam out so it's pointed out the window. I mean, hoping that the needle in the haystack. Because what am I gonna feel like when I'm driving down the road to the research area and Bigfoot walks across the road in front of me, and I'm gonna punch myself in the kidney if I have that encounter and I did not catch it on video because I was just basically too lazy to be prepared as we were going in there. But I'm hoping. Right. So, but it's been great to have you on the show. I mean, I love encounters are always my favorite thing, and to talk to people about their experiences, because I like the idea of at some point I'm going to join the club. I'll step through that doorway where from are they to what are they?
Right.
But until then, I get to live vicariously through Shane's experiences, like Shane's and like yours, and like it's just always cool to talk to people that have had, they don't have any question anymore about whether or not they exist. They already know. So
right.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your encounter with us. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with Monster Xers before we let you go?
Well, nothing really, I guess. I really appreciate y'all having me on. I am a fan of the show. Before it started, when I got contacted to maybe talk with y'all, I was super excited.
Well,
I am a fan, and I think y'all are doing a great job. So as long as people are talking about it, and there's places like this where people can talk about it and don't have to need to hide it or be ashamed of what they saw because of ridicule. As long as there's communities that have people like y'all that make people feel welcome, then I think it's a great thing.
No, I mean,
wow.
That's we're all about like research and sharing with people and this is actually our first encounter show that we've done, and we plan on doing more in the future because it's one of my, like I said, it's one of my favorite things. And when Shane and I are talking, I say, man, it'd be cool just to get some, find some people that will come on and talk about their experiences, because it does. There's people, other people that when people have experiences, a lot of times they run into ridicule and they're looking for somebody that will, that they can talk to without being judged and share their encounters. So again, we really appreciate you, Jamie, coming on and sharing your experience with us.
Absolutely.
So,
okay.
Thanks.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
So
thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
So that's another. I mean, that's another cool encounter to me. I mean, when people talk about it and they don't doesn't sound like they're embellishing it bigger than it is. I mean, he's driving along and has no expectation about. He wasn't out looking for Bigfoot. He sees something moving, and that kind of the way he just described it. That's oftentimes, always the first thing that catches the human eye is movement. So if it had been standing still, he probably wouldn't have seen it, or he would have gone by it and would have been standing still. And he was like, "What the hell was that?"
Right,
but
and these are reports that I like because they're not out there. They're not well-known reports. We just get your average person doing your average thing, sharing a report that they encountered as they saw it, and it was strange to them. And a lot of these people are seasoned hunters or woodsmen or whatever have you, and they share their encounter, and they're just, I talked to most of these people beforehand, and they're just very honest, and they're, there's no definitiveness about it. They're saying, well, what else could it be? This is what I saw. It's nothing I've ever experienced or seen before, and here you go. Those are the people I really lean to as far as credence, as far as believability, and it's phenomenal. And, Gunnar, we're going to be doing a Hopsquatch event here come July where we are going to be hosting Hopsquatch, Guy Edwards Hopsquatch, because he's going to be out of town, and we're going to be hosting this Hopsquatch event where we're going to do like a town hall sort of scenario where people can share their encounters. And I encourage those listening that are in the Portland area or just outside the Portland area where it's Washington or whatnot to attend this venue and share your encounter. You're going to be amongst skeptical people, fellow researchers, if you're a researcher, and inquisitive people. And it's going to be a positive venue where you just can come out and share your encounter. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody. If you've never had an opportunity to share your encounter with somebody, you've been afraid of being ridiculed or stuff. This is a great venue. You're among friends there. It's a safe environment, so to speak. And like you said, now I just want if don't let the word get out to Guy. He doesn't know we're taking over Hopsquatch. He thinks he's safe, but Monster X is coming in, and we're going to
shake up house.
So, but yeah, no, I would encourage anybody who's can get to Hopsquatch in the July Hopsquatch, which will be the third Sunday of July, and I am not looking at a calendar. I believe it's the weekend right before Beachfoot, actually. So
I believe so, yeah.
It is the 21st of I'm sorry, I'm looking at June. It is the 19th of July. So
okay.
I would encourage people to come out and join us and have a good time. I'm looking forward to it, and I know that Shane is really amped up about it. He is wants to show Guy has put his trust in us, and we're going to do a good job for him. So, and it's always a great event and a lot of fun to get together with all our Bigfoot friends and talk Bigfoot. So, so come and join us in July at Sasquatch, which does take place at the Lucky Lab on Quimby in Portland, Oregon. So. We'll be posting information about it up on our Facebook page and stuff. So, again, I'd like to thank our guests today, Jamie and Justin, for coming and sharing their encounters with us. We'll be back next weekend with Tyler Bound, and Tyler has spent time working on the Finding Bigfoot show, and we'll find out what Tyler's up to. I've known Tyler for a long time. Great guy, loves Bigfooting, and I hope you'll join us then next weekend on Sunday, 4 p.m., Monster X. And in between now, if you could swing by Squatch Coffee at www.squatchcoffee.com and grab yourself some Squatch Coffee. All right, thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next weekend. Keep it squatchy.
It's tough finding gifts everyone will love. Turns out not everybody wants a blanket with sleeves. Go figure. But when you switch to AT&T, you get $300 credit for trading in your smartphone. And with the latest devices in stock, I knew I could stock up on great gifts, like the Nokia Lumia 950 with Windows 10. I even saved enough for a stocking stuffer of my own. And it's not a blanket with sleeves. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
Limited time, each $300 requires a port-in, eligible purchase, activation, and trade-in. $100 bill credit within 90 days, $200 trade-in credit or promo card. Taxes, fees, restrictions apply. See store for details.